So welcome to the cinema, or the comfy chair zone. I hear the super session is overrunning, so we'll see what happens. Might get a crowd of people walking in at 22. Might not get a crowd of people because we're not that good. I don't know. We'll see. So those of you who haven't read the title yet, this is all about Intelligent Workspace and adding apps to it and how you can add ones that we haven't added already. My name is David Coddiam. I wear a random selection of hats, but one of them is around Workspace ecosystem. And with me is Jay Tomlin.
Hi, I'm Jay Tomlin. I'm part of the product management team.
And together we will hopefully manage to take you through this. If you do questions at the end, that'd be awesome. But if you're completely confused, then I guess wave at us and we may pay attention to you. The first thing is, obviously, social media is good. You should tweet because tweeting is encouraged, and you should tell us what you think. The next thing, though, is a little bit of trivia, mainly because trivia is fun and it wakes you up as well as me. So I require you to show me some hands, OK? I'm British, by the way, which means I'm not expecting jumping jacks, right? Just this. I'm subdued. OK, so in the US workforce, what is the percentage of millennials in the US workforce? OK, so who thinks 39%? Give me some hands. There are few enough people in this room that I can see who's not voting, by the way. So you're going to get called out. 39%. Who thinks 39%? Give me 39%. 1, 2. OK, 43. OK, that's better. Some of you are more awake. 56. Okay, about half of you are split between the other two, the last two. OK, well, it's 56. Millennials are not a new thing. Hi. So the next thing. How much time does the average knowledge worker spend each week trying to find stuff at work? OK. So is it 15%? Give me 15. 15? OK, 1. OK, middle one, 20. 20%. OK, 25%. You guys are going for the biggest answer because you have no idea what it is, right? OK, just checking. Good, good. It's 20. I don't have a prize if you get all three, by the way. I'm sorry. And the last one. How many context switches between apps does the average worker make per day? OK, this is a Microsoft study, so it must be true. Is it 144 context switches a day? OK, I get 144. Any other one? OK, I get 5 of you, 6 of you. OK, good. 373. You give me 373. Oh, about a third of you. And 524. Give me 524. The biggest number in the room. Yeah, none of you have any idea. OK, it's 373, which is a lot. OK, so just think about the reason I'm putting these numbers up, the last two. Think about how much time people are spending at work not actually achieve anything useful. So results in, guess what? Productivity problem. What do we really mean by that? Well, over the last few decades, productivity has gone up. This is good. The bad news is when the iPhone came, 2007, it didn't go up as much. Worse, it's going up even less. These are still going up, by the way, 1% increase, but there's a problem. So with these things, normally what we do is we say, well, we'll just add some technology. Technology fixes problems, right? Well, clearly the iPhone didn't. Unfortunately, adding technology, adding applications means everything's just too complicated. We get interrupted all the time. How many notifications do you get on your phone? Okay. And that means we're not very productive, and actually we're not very happy either. So what does this result in? Well, guess what? We've got lots of apps, but we don't use each of them very much. We try to find stuff, that 20%, okay, and we fail. And of course, you get sad face because we're too busy flipping and switching between apps, trying to find stuff, and not achieving useful work. So that statistic about who's in the workplace. Here you go. Here's the actual numbers. The green line is the millennials. So the point about this is not the millennials, but that new generations of people come into work, and they have different expectations. Guess why? Because millennials, no. Younger people, younger generations, are probably the early adopters of new technologies. So they come in and they say, well, I have this already. It's great. Why can't I use it at work? Millennials are in the workplace. It's not the fault of millennials, by the way. So productivity problem, just because there's more millennials than half doesn't mean that it's their fault. But look, at work, right now, a third of the people in your workplace are actively engaged. In other words, they believe in what you're doing. They're actively trying to make it happen. This is good, except 2/3 aren't. Okay? Half of them are not engaged. They're kind of passive. And 16% are actively trying to mess up what you're trying to do. Okay, 16%. That's a lot of people. It's more than 1 in 10, right? That's a big number. Are actively trying to not move your organization forward in what it's trying to do. So what do we do about it? We're trying to fix it, right, Jay? So this is what we're trying to do with Citrix Workspace.
Okay, so in order to understand how we're going to address these productivity challenges and make the user experience better with our Citrix Workspace service, let's take a quick review of how we got here and where we are today with the evolution of Workspace. The Workspace really started out with the idea that all of the company apps and data were like jewels inside a castle. And if you could get past the perimeter and get onto the network, then you could access everything that you need in order to do your job. And so we have the perimeter as the firewall, and then all of our apps and data were on-prem. And Citrix Storefront is the front end to the Citrix farm that hosted all of those applications and data. And most of our customers are using this today. Hands up if you're still using Citrix Storefront on-prem.
Be honest.
Yep. Okay, most of us in the room. It's great. It does an excellent job of brokering you to the applications that you need based on your role in the company after you've authenticated. However, we recognize that those applications that are sitting inside the castle are not the end of the story anymore. Employees are more mobile. They work from anywhere. They need to get access to applications that are not only inside your network and running on-prem, but also increasingly running in the cloud, whether that's being transferred out to cloud infrastructure, or actually the applications themselves are running in the cloud, like SAP or Office 365 or Workday. And so as a user, you now have a much more diverse mix of applications and resources that you need to access. And getting through that firewall into the castle is now only half the story. It's much more of an experience problem for the users who need access to those SaaS applications as well. So last year, we announced the new Citrix Workspace service, which brings together not only your on-prem apps and desktops like Storefront, but also aggregates in content from multiple sources. So we have the content collaboration service here, bringing in files from multiple silos, and also SaaS applications with single sign-on and access controls to help control the security of that information, even when it's stored outside of your company's network. So as a quick example, when you launch one of these SaaS applications through Citrix Workspace, even though that application is outside of your network, based on the user's identity and based on the context that they're coming from, they can still have some extra security applied to do things like limit copy and paste, apply an identity watermark in order to discourage any screenshots and information exfiltration, and limit the accessibility of malicious web links. So if you tried to click on one of those Pirate Bay links there, the policies would be able to stop that and prevent the user from being attacked by malicious actors on the web. So that's all well and good. We now have a solid user experience that pulls together all of your apps and resources into one place and acts as a launch pad to get you access to any application or any content, whether it's on-prem or in the cloud. But we still have an experience problem, because when you use those icons to launch into your applications, they tend to look like this, or this, or this, or all of the above. And you have an increasingly complex set of enterprise applications that tend to require training to even learn how to use. And this is a fundamental mismatch between what users experience in their personal life, what younger generations have come to expect, and it just leads to a lot of frustration. When you're context switching between all these complex apps, hunting for information and needing to navigate through all of the complexities of those enterprise applications, it just makes it harder and harder to find the information you need and complete that task that you're trying to complete. So as we look for inspiration to solve this problem, we looked at the consumer world. And Facebook is a good example. They've got 2 billion users or so. You don't get to that kind of scale with an application that's hard to use or needs training in order to understand, right? It's extremely intuitive. Users can just log on and begin using it right away. Same with mobile apps. Mobile apps have a much more seamless and task-oriented design with a very simple workflow with one big button that's very easy for the users to understand. So these consumer applications have really given us the roadmap for how to improve the workspace experience. Have an integrated feed with the information that you need to do your job. provide notifications about information that is relevant to you and timely, and then give the users clear actions, something that they can act on without too much thought about what needs to happen next, and without needing to navigate a whole hierarchical tree in order to find the information that they need. Meanwhile, AI and automation have also proliferated and become fairly ubiquitous in your personal life. And the contrast between what you experience at home and what you experience at work is pretty stark. So I go home and I have an Amazon Alexa smart speaker, and it's this magical device that can listen in on my conversations. It can summon my favorite music on command. It can answer questions and natural language queries, and order things and bring them to my door. And then I drive to work and I see applications that look like this. It's like a parallel universe, right? What we're out to do with the workspace is focus the user on the most important and essential tasks and filter away some of that complexity that's inside the applications. A great analogy, and we saw this in the keynote, is this copy machine, which has 100 buttons on this console here. And by and large, all of those extra buttons that know how to do double-sided, duplex, stapled, copies, folded, I don't know, that's for the 1% of power users who invest the time and energy to actually read the manual and learn how to use all those advanced features. But what do 99% of us do? They hit the big green button there to make a copy, because that's the workflow that you need from a copy machine. And we want more green button experiences out of our applications. And as the Citrix Workspace, we're trying to extract those green buttons, those simple tasks that can be done through the back-end systems without exposing the user to all of that unnecessary complexity, unless they're the power user who needs to go in and use it. So to summarize this, we have too many apps. The apps themselves are too complex. I think I heard a stat that the user typically uses only about 20% of the functionality inside the applications they have access to. And we're inundated with too much busy work, too much context switching required to go and get those simple tasks done. So our solution with Workspace is first to organize all of the apps and content and devices into one channel, into one user experience. So we've done that with the Workspace today. That's great. Next will be to guide the user and provide the personalized contextual content to give them the insight and those green button actions that they need to perform to do their job. And then the last step will be to help automate some of those workflows. So as we get better at learning what the users need to do and what next step follows, we'll be able to help automate their workflows. And the outcomes that we're looking for from this are improved engagement. So we want to see those employee engagement scores go up. And it makes a real difference. The companies that have better employee engagement have much higher revenue and much higher profit. We want to increase the end user productivity, try to take away that drag of 20% per week, hunting for information, and ultimately deliver a longer lifetime value for each employee. That means reducing the time it takes to onboard them, making them more productive and more engaged while they're on the job, and keeping them on the job for longer because they're happier about doing their job. So that's bringing us now to the new Workspace experience, which we unveiled at the keynote this week, where we have this integrated feed with micro app notifications and pages that can extract information and insights from the back-end applications and let the users take action right there from within the feed instead of having to launch each application. Or take this report from Tableau, where we can extract that insight from a report and just push it into the user's feed and not require them to think, oh, I need to go launch Tableau and load that report. Something interesting changed. Let's notify the user right away about what's going on. Now, how does this all work? Sorry, one more quick commercial. There will be a mobile app, a native mobile app for this experience as well, with the same notification cards that you see there and the same green button actions available to the end user so that they can be productive on the go. Now, what exact workflows will we include and how will we make this extensible? That's the main topic of this presentation. In order to get the ball rolling, Citrix will provide out-of-the-box data integrations and micro apps for the most commonly used SaaS applications. And we'll offer these integrations built into the Workspace service with the new micro apps capabilities. And for each of these systems of record or SaaS applications, we'll provide a number of template micro apps. And the micro apps are those green button experiences that speak to a specific workflow that the user can do, such like in Workday. If I need to do if I want to get updates about PTO requests, that's something that we can extract out of Workday and add to the notification feed. Or if I need to open up a help desk ticket, rather than launching ServiceNow and figuring out where in ServiceNow to go and perform that, we can just have the submit incident micro app be available as an action inside the Workspace experience. Or in Salesforce, get an opportunity update. So when something changes about one of the opportunities that I as a salesperson care about, that's just a notification in my feed. I don't need to go hunting through all of my opportunities in Salesforce in order to discover that change. And so we're building out these templates for a number of different systems of record and the most common SaaS applications like SAP, Ariba, Concur, Jira, Zendesk. We've got some nice integrations with Google G Suite, Tableau, Power BI. We're going to get the seed planted here, and in order to help you understand how you can extend that and add your own integrations and micro apps, we need to level set with just a little bit of technology. So let's start with the word micro app. What does it mean to be a micro app? A micro app is a presentation of a single use case from a business application that allows users to interact with content or complete simple workflows without needing to switch context or launch that full application. It's an atomic unit of work that I can quickly get done from the Workspace experience or from one of the other endpoints that we integrate with. This does not mean that we're out to rewrite the front end of every business application. That's not what we're trying to do. And there's absolutely strong reasons to continue using the full application and get the full experience when you need it. But there are many cases where all you need is that green button. And so the micro app extracts that one task out of the business application and presents it to the user in a more consumer-friendly way. When you look at the new user experience with the notifications feed, a few pieces of terminology here. Each of those items, we're calling that a feed card. And the card is the element of information. Some of them are actionable, like you see here with the approve button. Some of them may just be insights or information, some event that you may care about. In addition to the actions that you can take on the card itself, we'll have a catalog of actions that you can initiate. So perhaps I want to submit an expense. Well, there'll be an action for that integrated into the Workspace, enumerated in a way similar that we enumerate published applications from the SaaS catalog or the apps and desktops. Then when I click either of those things, a blade will slide out, and the contents of that blade in the Workspace UI is what we call a page. And you will be able to customize all of these things. You'll be able to customize the content on the notification cards. You'll be able to declare what actions should be available, the names, the icons, to which groups they should be applied, and you'll be able to customize the fields and buttons that show up in the pages for that micro app. How do we go about building micro apps? Well, this will be a key part of making this a success, is that we need to empower you to build your own data integrations and build your own micro apps. Citrix cannot possibly keep up with the high number of systems and workflows that everyone wants to build. So we're including a no-code drag and drop tool that lets you customize the templates that we provide or add your own new notifications and pages. This will allow you not only to connect to existing SaaS applications, but we'll be routing traffic through our Citrix Cloud Connector in order to reach custom on-prem systems with web services. What this will look like is in the Citrix Cloud Admin Console, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, there will be a new micro apps service tile. And when you launch to manage your micro app service, you'll be guided through the experience to add a new data integration and then add or assign micro apps for each integration and then customize them. When you add a new data integration, what we would do is connect to that system of record in order to extract the information, the active data and recent events that users would care about. And for this bit, we typically would use a service account that has read-only access to the information for all users. And it can synchronize that information into the micro app service and use that to power events. So after you've added in an integration, the sample micro apps would show up. So you see for ServiceNow, there are a few micro apps built in, like my assignments, submit change request, submit incident. Let's go ahead and see what it looks like when we synchronize the data. So once we've added ServiceNow as an integration, there will be a full synchronization of all the active data once per day by default, and then an incremental synchronization. So everything that has changed since the last sync can be pulled in. And this is configurable, but you'd want to do this something like every 15 to 30 minutes so that as new items arrive in the system over the course of the day, users get notified about what's going on. As the information comes into the micro app service, it can trigger events. So this is a visual query that indicates after a particular sync interval, when there's a change in the problem table, figure out who that change applies to, and then notify them. And you can notify them through a few different channels. One of the channels is the feed card. And then you can actually edit the look and feel of that feed card. So here's an example from the micro apps builder where you can customize the title of the card that would show up in the feed. You can insert variables from the data that has been extracted from the service of record. And so here's where it's not coding, but you do need to understand the data model of the system that you're integrating with. And as you make the changes, you can sort of preview the card appearance live there in the micro app builder. What I'd like to do next is in the body, the text that shows up on that card, I want to indicate who this incident was approved by. So I'm going through, finding the name of the person that approved this particular problem, and then now that's going to go and populate the name in the card notification. So with that, I want to help you all understand the architecture behind the micro app service and how this is all working under the hood, and David's going to help us with that section.
So basically, Jay doesn't want to help you at all. He's going to make me help you instead. So Jay mentions synchronization and pulling data from target systems and so on. Let's dig into that a little bit. So Citrix Cloud, it's a nice blue, fluffy cloud, warm and fuzzy. There is a service in that delivers the UI that you have just seen. Okay, now connected up to that, clearly we have somebody accessing it. This is good. Let's say we have ServiceNow as something you want to plumb into that UI. Well, today, of course, the user can access that directly. Right? We could have that as a SaaS service that we put through Workspace, as you saw at the beginning. But what we want to do is plug that in so that we get notifications through. Well, we have a micro app service which is responsible for generating those, and then a notification service that then pushes those into the UI. Now, of course, what we want to do is make that connection. Well, what is it? It's what we call a data integration provider. It's a DIP, sorry. And what you should be asking is, well, how do I make those things? Well, first things first, Jay mentioned that we only extract the data from that target system that is what we call active. What do we mean by that? Well, if I'm accessing PTO requests, nobody cares about the ones that were submitted and approved last year, right? That's not active. The ones that are active are the ones that are like, yeah, they're going to happen, they need approval, etc. So when Jay talked about not needing to synchronize all the data, we really do mean that. There's going to be a certain active set of data from any system that you want to pull through. So we extract that. Where does it go? Well, we have a cache in the cloud. It's a database. It's per customer, so single tenant. Obviously, it's encrypted, etc. And we pull data from the back end, and then we look at it and see, when we incrementally synchronize, what has changed? Do we need to generate a notification? And then when we pull data is we use a service account. Now, the service account is only allowed to read. It's not allowed to write. But it can read from as much as you let it read from. In other words, all the users, theoretically, in your enterprise. Now, of course, when we have a feed card, like, hey, somebody's booked holiday, there's a button, and it says approve or maybe deny if you're feeling jealous about somebody's holiday. When you want to approve, you need to write back the data into that target system. So in the ServiceNow case, maybe Jay dropped his computer, thought it was broken, raised the service request, opens the lid, turns out it's OK. Right? So he now wants to cancel the service request. Well, we can do that from the Workspace, but then Workspace needs to write all the way back to ServiceNow to say, close the ticket. And to do that, we need to do it in the context of the user. And so we're authenticating as that user using something like OAuth. Don't worry if you're not familiar with OAuth. It doesn't really matter. The point is it's as Jay rather than as the unknown, all-powerful service account. So that's the context. That's the architecture of what we're trying to do. So what you should take away from that is pulling data through data integration providers, that blue box, putting it into a cache, and then we're looking at the cache. So the question you should now ask is, well, how do we build these things? Well, as Jay mentioned, we're going to be building, or have built, a whole bunch of these. But inevitably, if the average enterprise uses, 500, 400 apps, we are not going to build all of those, at least not this year. So we're building lots, but you are presumably going to want to add one or two yourselves. And so the question you have is, how do I do that? So Jay's told you how to build a micro app. I now have to get to tell you how to build one of those blue boxes. So here's my Citrix Cloud. It's a different shape this time, not so cloud-like, but it's still blue. And I have my micro app service. Remember that cache? So the cache is now here. And here's my target system. Now, target system A, it's got a bit of a weird API. Maybe it's legacy. Okay. Well, that's OK. We can talk to any API if you want to. If you want to build a Java-based, fully custom data integration provider, you could do that. And that's what we've done with some of the integrations that we've talked about. There will be eventually an SDK for you to do that. That talks gRPC and RSocket out the back. You don't really care because you don't have to deal with that. You have to deal with talking out the front to whatever the legacy API is. That's fine. But for the common case, target system B, hopefully it's a nice modern web services API. Those of you who've seen kind of dealing with JSON over a REST API will be familiar with this. If it's a modern thing, that's fine. We have a thing called the generic web services connector. And that is effectively a data integration provider that we've pre-built for you that you just need to configure. The question is, how do you configure it? Well, one point to bear in mind, it is a low code, right, or no code perhaps, but you do need to understand a little bit about how the target system stores its data. All right? You can't just go in and drag and drop happy boxes and rainbows will be in the sky. It doesn't work like that. So here is what your, library of integrations might look like. So this is what you have to start with. So you want to add another one. Well, that's fine. Let's add a new one. First things first, you have to know the URI for the endpoint of the API that you're talking to. Okay? So in this case, we're going to talk to GitHub. Fine. Said, OK, let's add a new integration. Well, that's fine. How do we do that? There's no tables. What's a table? Well, clearly you're pulling in data. You need to have a database table in the cache. Right? Otherwise, where do we put the data? So we're going to create a table. I will blow this up for you. Here is the endpoint, the API endpoint. This is a URL or a URI. And we're now going to say, well, there's another thing we put on the end of that, a suffix, if you like. We want to know about the organizations that have accounts or have a presence in your GitHub account. All right? So it's you're sharing source code here. So you add that in. And then you say, OK, what of the columns in that target database do I want to read in? This one and this one. Don't care about this other one. That's fine. And then you say, I want to go and get the data that relates to one of those organizations. So let's say there's 10 organizations. I'm only interested in one called Zen Server because some of you know that's close to my heart. So we'll go and find out just the data associated with that. And if you look very carefully, you'll see that we're in the Path tab here. And this matters because when we go here, I'll blow that up for you again, you can now see we're on the response part. The reason I point that out, the request is you send and say, I would like data about Zen Server, please. Fine. What comes back is a whole load of JSON. And you have to decide what you want to do. In other words, what you want to filter out. So I now want, well, in this case, the ID, so the unique number, and the title of the stuff that's come back, so tickets or whatever. And I've got to figure out to do that. Well, that's fine. I've now got them in a table. But getting them in a table isn't good enough because I now need to define some events. What should I do, or when should I generate a notification based on the stuff I just sucked into that cache? Well, let's add one of those. So I'll blow that up for you again. Here we go. So first things first, let's check what's in that cache. How frequently do you want to do this? How frequently do you want to run this query? So I've got a manual one at the moment. And I'm going to work out, well, when I see something, what do I do, and where do I surface it? So those bottom little rows there, one of those is a feed card in Workspace. Okay, and there's various other things you can do as well. Now, I've added that, and let's blow it up for you again. Here you go. So now I've got a micro app that is going to be run that is going to say, oh, I'm going to generate a notification, which you can then see in the Workspace. So it's that easy. Now, the question I have for you is obviously, is it that easy from your perspective? Did anybody feel super afraid of this interface already? Anybody prepared to admit it? No, no. Okay, so you're all going to be making these things tomorrow, right? Good, good. I can see this is going to go well. But in fairness, right, what we're trying to do, I don't expect every user in the organization to do this, but this should be simple enough that you will have one or two people in your organization that are capable of doing this, and who can then use the interface that Jay described to then create micro apps. And that is a drag and drop interface, which is super easy to use, so you can tweak the ones that we've provided. So we've been through how to build a micro app. We've been through how to build one of those blue boxes that talks to a back-end system, a data integration provider. I want to take a little bit of time to talk about kind of what next, because I realize there's a lot of new content here, but I also want to talk to you about on-prem apps, because let's face it, almost all of you, if not all of you, have on-prem stuff. All right. How many of you have no on-prem applications? Good, good. This is going. That's right. I'm glad I was right. So today, what we've just described in Workspace is all about SaaS apps. Okay. Arguably, they're the easier ones to do for us. We're starting off there. But because you all have on-prem apps, we need to connect those through as well. And so what we're doing is you've got Citrix Cloud in the middle there. You've got Salesforce at the top. That's the easy one, the SaaS one. But the on-prem SAP system, or whatever it was, we are going to connect that through using a cloud connector. And so some of you are familiar with how Citrix Cloud interfaces with on-prem resources. You have a cloud connector that does what it says on the tin, really. It bridges between the two. And we will be using an additional set of cloud connector services to bridge that gap. And so if you think how this is going to end up, you're going to have your SaaS services with your notification cards in Workspace, but then that legacy service, so you remember the picture Jay showed you where you had Amazon Alexa on the left and that textual interface on the right. You can imagine a world where that textual interface basically disappears for the most part, and you get mobile notifications in your Workspace from that back-end system. So that's one thing we're doing. The next thing is, though, if you are going to generate these data integration providers, you may want to share it with your friends. So, I've got my data integration provider for Salesforce, and Jay also has Salesforce, and I would like to give it to him rather than him making his own. How do we do that? Well, cards on table, we don't have this yet, right? This is why it's coming soon. But we will have a way for you to share those between each other so that, if you as a customer build one, or indeed a partner builds one of these and wants to share it with multiple people, that will come as well. And there you go. Jay now has his magical blue box. How many of you remember the demo of Virtual Assistant in the keynote? Hands. Show me some hands. Who was awake in the keynote? Who attended the keynote? OK, good, good. We're still with the program. So there was a Virtual Assistant in the keynote, OK? And you could ask it things like, hey, what's my upcoming PTO? Now, what we can do, here's a video. Here's the list of micro app integrations that we've got in this particular workspace. You scroll down, we'll get to Concur. And in Concur, I've got a micro app which is about, hey, what are the pending approvals that I've got to do? So let's edit that micro app. And over here, you can see we've got a little questions thing. And the questions is, what questions can you ask the virtual assistant? So let's go into one of those. When it gets there, Yes, OK. And at the top, a little blue box, that tells you what the virtual assistant will be looking for. So if you like, what language is it looking for when you ask it about pending requests? And then there's some conditions attached. And when you ask it for that, it interprets it, and then it will reply with this set of data in the box. So that's going to be the card that comes back. OK? And so what you're ending up with is not only generating a micro app, that was before, but there's that little questions thing which basically says, how can I interact with that through the virtual assistant? And so if you're creating micro apps, you can also create integrations with the virtual assistant as well, or you will be able to. So it is a lot more than just a card in a feed. With that, I think we're doing pretty well, right? We've got through quite a lot. Right. Jay is going to summarize, and then we'll open up for questions.
That's right. So in summary, think about the user experience that your employees have and how it can be improved. We know that productivity is taking a hit, that productivity growth has been slowing for the last decade or so, and that ubiquitous access and mobile devices have apparently not made us more productive. In fact, they've created some new problems about context switching and interruptions, and we still have a lot of very legacy enterprise application interfaces that we're inflicting upon our end users. The consumer applications that the younger generation have grown to expect and use in their personal life are showing us the way. And we want to empower our users and give them an experience in their workplace that's not so radically different from what they have in their personal life. This can include things like artificial intelligence that suggest content or help them provide the next step, the next logical step in the business workflow so that nothing gets locked up and nothing is waiting too long on a user to perform their next action. With that, the workspace will be able to help save time on common tasks. And as I mentioned, we are not trying to replace every front end of every application. What we're trying to do is extract the most common tasks out of those applications and provide them in a way that the user can knock them out quickly. In those spare minutes in between meetings or in an elevator, if I can get something done quickly instead of having to launch that full application, then that's fewer things that I'll need to do in the course of my day, and it really will add up over time. One of the interesting projects that we have internally at Citrix right now is to literally measure the difference between performing one of these actions in the workspace via a notification card or a workspace action versus launching the application, navigating through the complexities of that app, and then completing the workflow that way. And we can measure the time savings that we get for each one of those discrete atomic actions. And it's not a lot. Maybe it's 2, 3, 4 minutes for each action. But when you do a lot of these, it really does add up over the course of a week. Data integration providers, or DIPs, are how we will connect applications where the system of data or the system of record resides into the Citrix Cloud and the Citrix Workspace experience. We are not replacing any backend systems. All of the actions that you take are ultimately performed against those backend systems. So when I approve something in the Workspace, it shows up as approved in ServiceNow or Workday. And finally, this platform would not be a success without empowering you, customers and partners, to build and customize the micro apps yourselves, be able to generate your own data integrations for whatever custom system you may have and that your business relies on. And ultimately, this will become a marketplace where you can build solutions around the workspace that are targeted at your particular market, and then share those solutions with others in your same line of work. Now, if you want to learn more, there is a webinar. Try the QR code. That should get you straight to the microsite with the more details. There are a couple of instances of the webinar happening on June 26th, where we can go into more detail about the features. I'll leave that up for a minute or so everybody can try to snap the URL. If you have trouble with it, just come see us after. We can make sure that we get you right to the registration page.
Well, I don't think we know the URL either. We'd have to try.
Well, yeah, I'll use my phone to do that.
Good. I guess we can probably open up to questions, right? Because we're done on the main content, so it's now up to you as to what you'd like to know.
We have about 5 minutes for questions, so think about it. And there are microphones on either side of the seats here, so we'd be happy to hear what you have on your mind.
We'll also be ringing a little bell at the end for those of you who've fallen asleep in the comfy chairs.
Yeah. Any questions?
Come on.
There's one.
See, he's brave.
Is this moving to secure mail?
Is this moving to secure mail? There will be a mobile app that provides the same activity feed and micro apps availability. We have been talking about some potential micro app use cases around email. Still early days on that, so nothing in detail to share. But the secure mail app would continue to be a separate mobile app from what you have in the Workspace UI.
Next victim. Come on. You know you want to. Burning questions on Workspace. Now is your chance.
OK, going once. Going twice.
Come and find us. If you're not brave enough to do it publicly, come and find us afterwards. We're happy to talk.
Please do take a moment to rate the session. Let us know how we did and how we can improve for next year. And there's another session on Intelligent Workspace later today, room C302 at 4:30. You'll be able to download these slides from the Synergy website starting June 3rd. That's Monday. Thank you all for coming.
Thanks.